All right. Well, today I get to have an awesome conversation with Neil Twa. And Neil, I'll tell you, I'll just let everybody know. I put this out there on Facebook about that I wanted to do interviews around this because I'd had already had 3 conversations around this topic
Nice.
of relationships and specifically, people who have made a massive difference in our lives. And I had 3 conversations around it. And I'm like, dang, I want to do more on this. So I put up a Facebook post and said, hey, I want to do more on this. And would you be open to do an interview? And I got a huge response on this. And looking at the caliber of people who responded, I'm like, man, I am stoked to do a bunch of these interviews and share them with other entrepreneurs and CEOs because I got to imagine it's going to have a pretty cool impact and stuff. And I don't have any problem letting anybody know. I got a huge response, got a bunch of interviews on the calendar, but this is number 1 right here. So we're just kind of going with the flow on this, Neil.
Right. I love it. So totally off the cuff. I get to be interview number 1. I was laughing a minute ago before we started recording about how I get to be the one that takes all the arrows in the back, being the first guy up the hill here, or the arrows in the front, depending upon which direction we're facing, I suppose.
You know what? I think we're going to be okay because people are going to be forgiving of us because we're doing something pretty cool here. So.
I think so. We're talking business, life. Who knows where this will go?
Yeah. So to kind of set the stage before we dig into the big question, why don't you just kind of let everybody know a little bit about who you are, what you do, who you serve, and what motivates you to do what you do, Neil?
Well, I mean, predominantly in short terms, I'm in e-commerce, and even smaller terms, I specifically focus on the Amazon FBA market in terms of launching, operating, scaling, and exiting these businesses. That's where we're predominantly focused on. We run in coaching and mentoring. We run our own companies and have our own businesses going now. And so we're really, really focused in the e-com market and looking to expand those out into bigger channels. As far as who I serve, first and foremost, I always got to give a shout out to God. He's got to be the first. So first and foremost, I serve God. Second, I serve my family. So I have 5 women in my house, 4 daughters, and a wonderful bride. And I feel honored and privileged to be kind of the lead provider, the head of the household, the guy, who supports all these women, and I get to watch them grow up and just get, be dad to a bunch of girls, which is in its own right, its own challenge. But in terms of, who I actually serve, I serve my family first, beyond my God. So beyond that, I serve my business, my clients, and the people that I do business with. People I'm networking with, people like you, people you've connected me to, and others. Just looking for ways to always give back and always, be a light in the darkness and give people an opportunity to just expose who they really are and give them a runway to being things maybe they never thought they could be before. So that's me.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that, and that's pretty damn cool. And of course, being a father myself, I don't have 4 daughters. I got 3 of them. So,
3 is close. 4, I don't know.
I got.
Reminds me of it reminds me of the comedian Jim Gaffigan. He's got the story about what's it like to have 4 children. He's like, well, imagine 3 people. You have 3 children and you're drowning, and somebody hands you a 4th child. That's kind of how it feels at times. Although I don't feel like my family drowns me, but I could see how others might get that. I always get the same thing. It's like, well, you have a big family. I can't believe I have 1 or 2 kids. I can't imagine having 4. Frankly, I can't imagine having less than 4. I actually think that if God had put a stop to it, we'd probably have 8. And most likely with patterns, you would find that I have all girls. I almost guarantee I'd have 8 girls, not 4. But it's interesting to see the dynamics, family life, business balance, this kind of stuff. People talk about it. But quite frankly, I don't think anybody's exposed to some degree until you have a really large family that also operates around your business, that is part of your life, that is part of your daily activities, that is part of your home office, that is part of your world, and juggling all that too. You just have to be able to refocus and think of it as a blessing and not a burden. And that takes, daily activities of being grateful for what you have and where you are and who you're with. And that, some of those little frustrations are okay. those little stresses are fine. It's all a matter of how we refocus, right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I can relate to so much of that, Neil. And I always joke that, well, Lisa and I, we as far as when it comes to having kids, Lisa and I finally figured out what was causing that, so
Yeah.
so,
I've had people ask us, are you sure you know what's causing that? And I'm like, yeah, it's my really attractive wife. I know what's causing it.
That's right. That's right.
It's all her fault.
You know what? I'm gonna blame it on Lisa from now on too.
Blame it on Lisa. I blame it on Katie. That's okay. Yeah, they can take it.
Yep.
Strong women, lots of kids. Well, she would argue she has 5 kids. I'm just the 5th one tagging along.
Yes.
With the rest of the crew, depending upon which day it is, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm sure Lisa would say something similar to that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But I mean, in terms of servant, it's just one of those things. It is, when you find yourself looking for things to serve, it's one thing to say, well, I serve people, I serve this, I do that. It's another thing to try to really remember what it's like to be a servant leader, like how to really lead through action and activity, trying to get your words to match up with your actions, and walking in integrity in that. It's a struggle. Yeah. And I think we all face it, especially in the online world, in the marketing world, where it's so easy to leverage, just slight truths, if you will, in the marketing world. A little bit more of this, a little more percentage of that, a little higher that, a little farther with the revenue, such and such and such.
Yeah.
I think it's a dangerous game we play in times.
For sure.
See that. So we gotta be careful with that.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But servant leadership usually comes from trying to mentor and follow people who are strong in that way. And when you and I met here literally 3 weeks ago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I think we found that mutual resonance in our life, in the conversation and the topics we were having, where we're pretty practical guys. I think, at least I've felt that way with you in our first conversation.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Well, I'll tell you, I'm excited, excuse me, to kind of dig into this question a little bit. And so I'll kind of reiterate it. Here's where we're going to go. I'm going to ask you this question, and like I said, I'm excited to dig into this. So have you ever met or been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your business or your life, so much so that had you not met this person, most of what you have today wouldn't even be possible?
Yes. That's an easy one. It was my uncle. My uncle helped me understand the possibilities of what opportunities could actually look like on not just a small scale, but a big scale. He was a self-made man, came out of the Marines. He started a boat company in San Diego and started developing some of the fastest race boats in the world, set the time record between San Diego and Hawaii with his trimaran. Wow. He showed me what was possible when you can dream big. And I had very limited scope in mindset until that point. And it was by no fault of my parents and stuff. My dad's a hardworking guy. He's an amazing man. He's 79 now, worked for 28 years at the same plant, did the same thing. And, is kind of a strange conundrum for me growing up that way, having the opportunity to go to college, and he did not. Coming back from a college break in my sophomore year to go to work during the summer at the business where he had spent the last 20 something years, to be in the business office working on the business computers and things like that. Well, he was more in the mechanical side. I got to have lunch with him and it was great, but it just gave me a different perspective. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It just gave me a different viewpoint, and to compare that to kind of what I was watching my uncle doing, and having conversations with him about the business he was growing and the things he was doing and the stuff he was accomplishing. It really sort of was a rich dad, poor dad scenario for me. Okay. And it really did open my mind to realizing there was so much more potential that I was being given the opportunity to look at. I just had never really perceived it that way, if that made any sense. Not that what my dad does was any wrong, that he's not a very good man, a strong man, and a hard worker with integrity, and obviously built a life for us while we didn't have everything we wanted. We never really wanted for everything, which is awesome because he did a great job for us. But his situation never led him to really see and dream and see big dreams. And so to have that moment in that time, my uncle died in a plane crash about 15 years ago now, I'm thinking back. I lost him early on in my business career, but I lost him before I had a chance to really dive in deeper to the accomplishments that he had achieved beyond that boat building business. He had gone on quite a bit farther in business and achieved levels that most people don't achieve. And because of that, he gave me a scope and a dream and a concept to keep leveling up, I guess would be the right way to say that in a non-marketing term, to just keep accomplishing more, that there was more to do. There's more abundance. There is more out there. It doesn't just mean wealth in terms of the dollar amount or our bank account or this crap. It just means in terms of the way you look at life and the way you refocus things and the way you see opportunity and abundance in everything, where you see the joys in the little things. That while you have a roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship, it's the way that it works. And that can literally happen from the morning to the evening in some instances. It's the littler things you focus on. It sounds kind of dumb, but it's just how you refocus. Even a good cup of coffee can turn around a previously bad call. It's just how you approach each cup of coffee, each change, each little joy. And you put that little joy into perspective, and all of those tiny little things overflow that cup for the day. And any one negative thing that occurs in that day is drowned out by all those tiny little wins. And all those tiny little wins can just be every little joy, every little kiss from the girls, every little thing that happens, every little laugh that occurs, every opportunity that you can see goodness and joy in the world. And he helped me focus on those. And he helped me focus on the abundance of life.
Yeah.
While wealth and opportunity were a part of his story, it did not just necessarily define him as the man he was. He just really helped me see a different perspective, a way of looking at life that I had never been privy to before. And it was just setting records, doing things, and going after it, and just not stopping. In all the challenges that he had, he still overcame those things. In fact, he had the ability to do things that others could not do, but yet he still lived in the day. He lived in the moment. And it's just a good reminder that we all miss sometimes as we're planning our 3 to 5 year plans and what we're going to do for next quarter and, the next big deal and this kind of stuff, right? We always talk about that a lot. And it seems to be some level of accomplishment. That is no longer my basis of what I consider to be an accomplishment. While they're fun and they're neat and it's great to meet new people and it's great to quote unquote level up your business or accomplish new standards of living, and it has to do more with now me meeting folks like you and others that will add more benefit to my life than anything else can possibly do. And it's a joking phrase, but it sticks with me and it's written on my notepad. You never see a hearse with a U-Haul behind it. And so none of that will ever matter more to me than the relationships I'm building right now and for the opportunity to witness to those folks.
Man, so how old were you when you had the first conversation with your uncle that you realized, wow, this is powerful? How old were you?
I was 21. I had bailed out of college my third year. I was trying to figure out what to do with life. I had went to school on a full ride music scholarship. I realized by year 3, after being kicked out and reinstated twice, I didn't want to be there. I was dying an entrepreneurial death. I just didn't know what it meant yet. Because the constrictions of that whole environment kind of really stopped my creativity, which I loved with the music and what got me to school in the first place, was being really strangled by the system itself that would not allow me to use my creativity. And because of that, I was like, I don't know what I want to do with life. I don't know what happens. And I had a conversation with him. And he said, well, have you ever considered a franchise model? Have you ever considered getting into business and starting? I know a lot of people that do that. And he just set some concepts in mind for me that, again, refocus. It was the first time I'd ever heard of, I know it sounds weird to us today, but a franchise and the opportunity to leverage someone else's system that's built and controlled and gives you the opportunity to work under a plan of action that, if you follow them and you do their co-marketing activities and stuff, you can have success with it. And a lot of people, and he talked to a number of friends who had, he put me in touch with, who had like 17, 20, and 100 different franchises. And because he got me into connection with them, all of a sudden I was like, oh, wow, I could be doing my own business model. I could be doing this. But I didn't have enough business experience. So the best advice he gave me was stay in the business world. Find a business job, get in, even if it's corporate for a while, get into it, learn the ropes, learn the things they're not teaching you about, the regular operations of business and stuff. You're not going to learn that in college, which I thought was funny that he told me that. And he said, get out there and start working. So I did. And because of that, I worked in Sprint. I was in PCS Mobile when it launched. And then eventually I worked myself into IBM and spent almost 5 years in IBM with no business degree, working inside. And he really taught me how to adapt and learn those things and give confidence in myself and what was possible that I didn't have. And it was a huge turning point for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. So
he encouraged me past those points. It was a great relationship. I miss it. I miss it now, especially as I've gotten farther in business. I'd love to have him as a sounding board, but I no longer have that. Right.
So do you have other sounding boards in your life now? Other people who hold that role?
Absolutely. But they aren't even in some degree playing at the same level he was. So they're at different levels, but they're, my business partner for 8 years always gives me wonderful insight, helps me to think about things differently. That's why he's a part of my business, why we're a part of each other's lives. And I do trust his opinion very much, and it carries a lot of weight. There are quite a few others in my life who I would say are, in business and personal too, not just professional, because that's always the default and de facto answer, I think, for a lot of us, is to just say, what's our business life? But there's so much more to life than just business. There really is. My wife constantly pushes me to level up, which is great. She went the route of going through school. She got her RN degree. When I met her, she was on her way to being an NP, nurse practitioner, and was thinking about going into the actual full medical field and getting her doctorate. So she was on, a career path. She was moving, which is great. It was one of the things that was very attractive about her. But she was on a career-oriented, licensed path. She was on that way. I was not. That was the structure I tried to get out of. That was so much of what I fought, and yet it was attractive to me because of the qualities that she instilled in it and the structure she built. Her father was a PharmD and pharmacist, ran his own business. He didn't start that until he was like 38 and went back to school and reinvented himself. And became a pharmacist in his late 30s, and then spent a better part of 25 years as a pharmacist before he retired, which was, her ability to see that entrepreneurial aspect, although she had the structure and framework of a degree and license-based educational experience, is one of the reasons why we hit it off. So she created some of that structure, but she also understood the flexibility of entrepreneurship. And so she creates and bridges a gap for me, which is very fascinating. She creates that structure, and she understands the way things have to be in a certain pattern and behavior. And that's this kind of way that it is. By me over here, I get to be a little bit of the ADHD. Let's figure this out, jump off a cliff with no parachute. Right. But her and the others around me have learned to say, let him jump, stop holding him back. Let's jump with him. But we always plan to jump with a backpack so that as we're going down, we can build something. So in life, her and my partners and people around me who are trusted resources and my wise counsel have learned to give me that flexibility where others really tried to constrict me. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. The whole, what motivated me most about doing interviews around this topic was having people like yourself share their stories with the goal of having anybody who would listen to that really see the value in having the right relationships in our life, both personal and for business, and even motivating them to cultivate and nurture more of those kind of relationships. And so what advice would you give people as far as, how can they nurture more of those kind of relationships in their life?
I think it's probably trying to identify what you consider to be good counsel, wise counsel, acceptable counsel, mediocre counsel, and counsel that is probably in some ways in your best interest, but also willing to give you like really critical feedback. Feedback you're willing to listen to, not just because it's necessarily critical by nature or emotional driven, but it's more specific, if that makes any sense. What I mean by that, like, if I go to any one of my close connections who I trust and I ask them point blank, what do you think about this? Or here's what I was thinking of doing. I get an honest answer. I get a real answer. I get that's a dumb idea. Or I get hey, you know what? It's not so bad, but did you think about it like this? That's trusted counsel. That's taken quite a long time to establish who those folks are. Yep. It's a lot easier in today's world. And I see it now that many people struggle with this. they're looking for that counsel group. They're still searching for it. They're searching for it in business, life, personal relationship, or otherwise. They are looking for somebody with some practical experience, some practical knowledge, and some practical criticisms of what they're doing. Because people are searching for that. Not all of us want to hear it, and we don't all need safe spaces, but some do and others do, and that's fine too. But at the end of the day, building that is a matter of, I think, being willing to ask the right questions of people who are around you, and then shutting up and listening, having a conversation, not just talking. And really, it's a two-way street of active listening. And that's one of the things, if you can find someone who's willing and is capable of doing that, make sure that you're also reciprocating and use that as wise counsel. And discernment is probably the second thing, trying to gauge discernment on counsel. Some things sound really good, but yet it's not exactly that good. How do you tell the difference? It really, I get it when it comes down to the knowledge and application. If someone can really explain to me what they're doing or how it functions, and what is the boundaries by which this thing can operate, if they can explain it to the point where I get it, that sort of shows me that they know what they're doing. If they're using too many generalities, if they can't give me enough specifics, then I probably question whether or not they're the right person to use against counsel. And really, it gets down to asking questions. That's the third thing. So understanding who to talk to, using discernment, and that comes through a lot of questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Many of us are afraid to ask questions because we fear and reject the answer even before it happens. I have learned to stop doing that, and stop weighing the emotions and opinions of others who do not affect my life.
Yeah.
And that's asking good questions.
That's right. I mean, asking good questions. That's all I've been doing for years, is just ask. Heck, that's all I'm doing right here, is asking questions.
Yeah,
you're the one talking, man. I'm just asking questions.
Well, I'm in the hot seat. You're asking me the questions. If you were on my podcast, I would be asking the questions. Yeah.
But there's such a valuable lesson there that, I mean, that's how we get everything, really, is just by asking questions of the right people. And of course, that's how we make like real connection with people too. I mean, I was just in an event a couple of weeks ago, and on a break, we had about a 20-minute break in the event, and I got to talking with this guy, and I just started asking him a couple of questions, and it led, he was talking the whole 20 minutes. And at the end of the event, they were showing us back to our seats, and he said, "Oh, Kev," he said, "I'm so sorry, I talked the whole time and you didn't get to talk at all." And I'm like, that's totally cool with me. I mean, I got to learn quite a bit about him in 20 minutes, enough to know that, what, I want to have another conversation and get to know him more. And
that's just good conversation, Kevin. That's good conversation. And you know what I believe it's from? Because when you surround yourself with a lot of women like we have in our houses, and they do all the talking, most of the time you just sit around and listen. I can't keep up with the 20,000 words a day from 5 people in my house. So I just do a lot of sitting around listening. It's a good skill set. Listening, active listening, not just listening for questions. I think too many people ask questions or think that questions should be pointed towards a specific goal or objective. I'm asking you a question because I want you to gain a certain output. We would call that more like a NLP type questioning scenario, right? More of a neuro-linguistic programming. I'm trying to get you to come to a certain conclusion that I want you to come through. So I'm asking targeted questions that will lead you to my outcome. And this is not real good conversation. Right? Good conversation is just asking a question, shutting up, and then actively listening, and then finding out if there's any input you can offer from someone. And usually you'll find out the conversation is like, man, I've had the best conversation in the world. And you're looking at it going, I only said like 10 words the whole time.
That's right.
And it's a mist.
My experience is you ask a good question, and then you get some great insight back. And then for me anyways, it causes me to, talk more about that, or I'll ask for clarification on something that was said. And I say that's what it ends up doing for me. And that's why I can go 20 minutes or 30 minutes and like hardly say any dang thing, because you're actively engaged in it. It's like, shit, for me, it's just fascinating to learn about people that way. And
absolutely. it's a, what you mentioned, mentors. Travis Sago has been working with me for months now, listening in his groups and just his wisdom and knowledge and the way he approaches things. And, his ability to ask questions or to grab some insight is uncanny. He's a gifted man. Yeah. But one of the things he's helped me learn is how to approach people in such a way where I am able to let them be the lead, even in a call or even in a conversational over text format, or that never leads to a call, where somebody wants to get involved in my business, but we've never had a conversation. Yeah. And that's a pretty interesting skill set. And in that way, everything I'm doing is asking questions. Yeah. But they're getting specific, because the concept here is no longer thinking I need to reach thousands of people, to make my business scale to the next level. It's more like I need to reach the right 100 people, who I'm going to go deep into. We're going to have a relationship. Maybe someday they'll show up to my funeral, kind of thing. Not like the thousands of people who like my posts and comments just because I'm trying to reach masses. Yeah. Like it's a consumption versus quality issue in that way. And just listening to him over the months has made me realize that that's the wrong narrative. The right narrative is to stay focused, have an interpersonal relationship, and understand things like you do have $3, which I remember, and you do live in the West Coast, and you're a specific kind of guy. This is things I want to learn more about you, right? That have less about any potential business we do, but more about just growing a relationship. And I think that's a lost art in today's soundbite world.
Yeah. And yet, it's been my experience that the relationships we have, second to our expertise and know-how. I mean, the relationships in our life are one of the most valuable assets that we have.
They are.
And
they are.
People don't realize that. Most people don't realize that. But yet,
I don't think they do. But I think as your network gets smaller and your connections get tighter and your trusted influencers and wisdom givers and your tribe that you build as you grow into this area levels of business, as it becomes tighter, you find yourself not wanting to affect or create ripples or cause problems in those relationships. You find yourself wanting to invest more time, energy, and effort into their growth, not just your own. Yeah. Which I think is one of the things that's missed. It's missed in the art of connectivity. Yeah.
Well, Neil, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this with me. I'm going to be completely candid here. I don't know why, but just even doing this, knowing that it's recording, knowing that I'm like, okay, my goal is to put this out there and share it with people. Quite honestly, if you and I would have just been having this conversation without that record button going, it's a different vibe and a different feel right now. And in some ways, I was a little bit nervous, even thinking like, okay, you're going to be putting this out there for people to hear, and you want it to be good. You want it to be worthwhile for them to listen to and stuff. And I appreciate you for letting me just spread my wings a little bit and just kind of going in this new direction, flying by the seat of my pants in a little bit. But
I'll be your backpack guy. You jump. I'm going with you.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Build it on the way down. Let's go.
We just took a jump, didn't we?
Right off the cliff, man. It's okay. I love it.
So, any last words you want to share with anybody before we call her out?
I don't have any last words of wisdom. I don't. I wouldn't try to push anything that's forced.
Well, thank you again, Neil, because I really appreciate this. I really appreciate this, and appreciate you taking the time to do this. And thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'll be listening to the other guests and seeing what else I can glean from these conversations as you go about.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks again.
You're welcome.